because we're going to make this. Okay, we're live.
Let's go.
Let's rock.
Back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports. I'm Steph. I'm here with Alex Lott, the fantasy phenom. And look, it's that time of the year. It's early August. It's camp. It's rookie news every day. Just read that Trey Lance isn't going to start week one, like for sure. That's locked in, which is a bummer. Which is a bummer for some dynasty shares. But Alex, I'm ready to get into this 12-team PPR redraft mock and really dive into some of these strategies today. Anybody who's joining us here in the live draft, feel free to hit us with questions. We'll try to go through those. We'll put them on screen and hit pause on the mock as we go through this. But Alex, you have to get into it?
Let's go, dude. It's mock draft season. We're going to be trying to bring at least one mock draft a week as we get closer to kickoff. At least. And if you're in these wild, like 14-team, 2-quarterback, double tight end premium leagues, like just let us know what kind of leagues you're in. We're definitely willing to switch it up here and there because I know the strategy differs. Today, we're sticking with the cookie cutter 12-team leagues, just being one of our first ones of August, now on August 2nd. So let's jump in.
All right, I'm going to hit start draft. It's going to randomize our draft spots. Hopefully, it shafts you with the 112 and I get the 101. Let's take a look at where we're at. Looks like I got the 106, 105, 106. So hopefully we get some sniping here. And I'm pretty pumped because being in the top 5 means I'm going to get one of these stud workhorse running backs.
We already got a question from our boy Viper 8828.
What's up, Viper?
Shout out to everyone coming over from the Discord. Viper is 105 and a 14-team PPR. He wanted CEH as second running back because of the team he's on. Yada, 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 and then jump McCoy. So CEH as your RB2 in a 14 team. I think if you end up getting him in the back of that second round, that's a smash pick for me. Steph, you and I have been liking him in the back of these 12-team mocks. So I'm absolutely down with CEH as an RB2.
100%. 100%. You can get him back of the second in a lot of leagues. I think that's a fair value for him. Love it when, let's say I'm at the 101 or 102, going with McCaffrey or Cook, and then circling back with like a Waller, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, one of those guys there, maybe even a Calvin Ridley. You add in CEH there to get that solid, stable RB2 with some massive upside on the Chiefs. And that's a recipe for success. You're going to feel great. And I'm going to get into this once we get into some of the later rounds. But this year, Alex, there's a huge additional layer of value at the running back position that just wasn't there a year ago. I remember last year, you and I were all in on triple running back to start off our draft, starting off with 3 strong running backs. But this year just doesn't make a lot of sense because we had all those rookies from last season. We still have a nice, stable group of veterans that are still very productive, like the guys that just went off the board here, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott. So this decision was made for me. I'm drafting here at the 105. You're at the 106 again. So let me hit resume on this draft. But, I mean, it's a locked-in decision. I'll take a quick look just to see who's there. It's Derrick Henry. Saquon Barkley's also there. I'm going to be interested to see if you take him with some of the injury concerns that are coming out of camp with Barkley. At least what we saw when he was at the football camp that he was running, I saw him juking out kids playing keep away. So he seems fine.
It's almost so poetic. We got pick 5 and 6. We just did our running back tiers video last week. If you haven't checked that out, do so right now. After this video, but we basically broke down there our RB tier 1, which is 6 guys, and it's guys that we think should be the first 6 picks of every single draft, unless you're in one of these ridiculous, wild scoring leagues. And those 6 guys are going to go off the board first year. It was CMC, Dalvin Cook, Kamara, Zeke, Derrick Henry, and Saquon Barkley, who's going to be my pick here at the 106. I'm not buying, that he's going to be incredibly inhibited this season. I think he'll be out there week 1, even if he does have a slow ramp-up period in terms of his volume. I think he's going to be at full strength as we get into game 3, 4, 5. And once we're, week 9, 10, getting into the playoffs, him being limited by injury is going to feel like such a distant memory when he's winning people championships. So Saquon at the 106 to me is a value. I know the O-line is a concern. They did get more weapons, though, in the offseason. So I'll take that pick easily. Also, shout out to Big Pun. Good to see you here. Big Pun, always repping.
Pun is an OG. He's been with us when
Oh,
like
yeah.
we were hyped when we got like 4 views on a video.
We'll probably get 4
Hey,
on this one, but those 4 people will win their league.
let's go. Yeah, back to you at the 207, and you got a lot of options here.
This is
Where are
tough.
you gonna go?
This is a tough one looking at the board because I do typically like to go RB still this season. If I don't get one in the second round, I like to get one in round 3. But there's just some values at other positions. I love early tight end this year. Then I see guys like Calvin Ridley and DK Metcalf sitting on the board at the wide receiver position. But I still think there's just so much wide receiver value to be had in some of those middle rounds. So I'm going to fade wide receiver for now. And for me, it's really between your boy, Antonio Gibson, CEH, who Viper just mentioned, and one of the tight ends. I'm going to mix it up here. This is a little bit early. I would like to get him at the back of the second. My time is running out. I'm snagging Darren Waller at the 207 to see how this draft turns out. And honestly, this is why we mock draft. We just want to see if we go tight end mid-second, what is the team going to look like? So this is going to be experimental for me, but we'll see how this team turns out.
I don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it.
It's a little early. It's a couple spots early, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I am going to go Gibson. You alluded to it. If you had gone Gibson, I probably would have gone DK Metcalf and got into some stacking later on in the draft. Went and go out and get Russell Wilson at value later on. And we'll dive into stacking here in a little bit. But the thing about Gibson, I've already broken him down at length on our channel, but I think he does truly have top 10 upside, if not top 5, assuming good health. Good reports are coming out today about the turf toe injury. Ron Rivera had nothing but very good things to say. I think he has everything he needs to go out there and produce. The offense got a complete overhaul this offseason. The Washington football team had one of the best off seasons as far as free agent signings, who they went and acquired in the draft, going out and getting Fitzmagic that'll keep the offense at least running smoothly. And then Gibson already proved to us last year he can do everything he needs to between the tackles on the ground. Now we just hope that receiving work goes up. And as of reports right now, when what Rivera is saying is that Gibson should unlock a little bit more of his potential in the passing game this season. So we saw pretty solid tier of receivers go. We did see CEH go. Even saw Mahomes slip into the back of the second. I don't know how often you're going to see that in drafts.
Maybe in your home leagues. Maybe.
Yep. Now, there's an interesting point here for me. I am going to take Terry McLaurin. It's almost a negative correlation, right? Because I do have Antonio Gibson. But what I'm essentially saying with this strategy here is, as long as the Washington football team is putting up points, moving the ball, both of these should be fine options. And if it's not an Antonio Gibson week, it's definitely going to be a Terry McLaurin week, the way he gets funneled volume. I'm all in on Curtis Samuel as well. I'm very high on this Washington football team offense from a fantasy football perspective. There are going to be a lot of shootouts in the NFC East. And we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick support guys like Devontae Parker being wide receiver ones in fantasy. Imagine what Terry McLaurin's going to do.
Yeah, I'm glad you went McLaurin because it gives me my guy here in the 3rd round. I'm going to go with DeAndre Swift at running back. Yes, there's some receivers I like on the board. That tier of Woods, Cooper, Godwin, Lamb, very, very strong. But I did pass on running back last round. And I don't want to leave the 3rd round without my second running back because it drops off really, really quickly. And I like DeAndre Swift this season, especially in a PPR league. I'm in on him. I know he's a polarizing player in a bad offense, but I think he is going to be the workhorse. There's been word of like 25 carries a game, which no, I'm not expecting to happen. But that just tells me that they want to give this guy more work on the ground. He's going to add value in the receiving game. Even if the touchdown upside is low, I still think Swift is going to give you a really high floor because of his volume. So I'm in on the Swift breakout. And if he over-indexes in touchdowns higher than we're expecting, higher than we think this Detroit offense can take him, he could end up being a top 8, top 6 back if everything hits right. So I'm going to be weak at receiver, but I think there's going to be value later on. So Barkley, Swift, and Waller is my start in this draft. We did see a couple quarterbacks come off the board, a good mix of wide receivers and running backs. That wide receiver tier that I was really looking at, a lot of those guys did fly off of the board there. So I am looking at a tier down. Miles Sanders is here as well, which is interesting in round 4.
407, not bad.
Thank you for pausing the draft. I was feeling the pressure. So this is a tough one because I like Miles Sanders as an RB3, but I just have to pick up. I have to pick up a wide receiver here, and there's a value pocket I think right here: DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, and Tyler Lockett. And I'm going to go with the upside pick here. Steph, you can go ahead and start the draft back up. I think I've made my decision with Tyler Lockett, someone I've been liking a lot in best ball drafts just because there is upside in the Seattle offense. I know he is an inconsistent player in years past, but I want someone who has that boom potential. I do expect Russell Wilson to have more attempts this season. The wheels fell off in the back half of last season. But if we even see, 80% of what we got out of Russ and the Seahawks offense over the first half of last season, Lockett is going to be a great play. I think he and DK Metcalf are going to be fantastic this year. So I'm going to lock in Tyler Lockett as my wide receiver 1. A little bit scary, but knowing I have Darren Waller makes me a little bit easier with that pick. Shout out to Mitch. The Lions do suck, but they got some maulers on the O-line, so we'll see what happens
Hopefully
this season. Penei Sewell is a big pickup.
Yeah, let him clear some lanes for Swift to run through. And an interesting point that came up when I hopped on with our boys over at the Fantasy Stock Exchange. We went really deep into a J.K. Dobbins versus DeAndre Swift debate, and I was defending the Swift side. One of the things we got into, though, is the coaching staff, both the offensive coordinator and the new head coach in Detroit are guys that have coached the likes of Alvin Kamara and Austin Eckler over the last 3 or 4 seasons. So these are guys that know how to use a pass-catching running back a lot and just pepper them with targets. Alex, interesting to see you go Lockett there. It was just one of those situations, I think, for you where the way the draft played out kind of locked you into having to go receiver here. But I'm also going to go receiver again. And this is against my nature. Anybody who watches Double Move Sports for any extended period of time knows that I'm typically very running back heavy. But the way this value pocket is playing out at running back, this is illustrating exactly the point I wanted to make here. So we have this new tier that's developed in 2021 that did not exist in 2020, consisting of guys like Miles Sanders, Myles Gaskin, Travis Etienne, Mike Davis, a perfect name to take late in redraft. Even other names that have already gone off the board, like Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery, Chris Carson. All these guys are getting continually depressed. And in some cases, like for Josh Jacobs, the pendulum swung really far one way. Same thing for Chris Carson. I think here in this draft that we're doing, Chris Carson went earlier than I've seen in a lot of drafts. I've been able to get him back of the 4th in many cases. And when you look at what he does on a fantasy points per game basis, he's been an RB1 the last 2 seasons. He's been RB11 and RB12 the last 2 seasons on fantasy points per game. So Chris Carson's another guy that you can get in this range. But because of this new tier that's developed, what that means is I can trust, knowing that I have Derrick Henry, Antonio Gibson, that I can still wait on that RB3 and get a guy like a Travis Etienne, take that upside shot. Worst case scenario, I'm stuck with a Chase Edmonds or Javonte Williams.
Perfect RB3.
Great RB3s. Same thing with DeAndre Swift and guys last year that you were able to take later on that ended up popping and having those huge seasons. Gibson being another one of those who I already have. So because I am going to go wide receiver, I'm going to go Cooper Kupp. I think not only is he an upside play, but he's a safe, stable option now in that Matt Stafford.
Let's go.
He's going to unlock things that we've never been able to see before from Robert Woods, from Kupp, for that whole offense, really. All I have to hope now is that maybe the defense starts to break down a little bit. Hopefully Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald aren't just holding back the offense because they're so dominant on defense. But I'm very high on Kupp this year. I think he should be a baller.
It looks like your bet paid off. I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about. Darrell Henderson, Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, Chase Edmonds, Javonte Williams, all available for you as an RB3 in a PPR league. I'm fine with all of those names, and that's something that
who I'm going.
I know you're going Gaskin. You're sniping me because that's 100% who I would have taken here at the 506. But something you alluded to earlier, in the past, we've wanted to go triple RB if we can to start a draft just because those running backs are gold. This year, I'm kind of changing that into I want 2 running backs in the first 3 rounds. I think after that Swift-Dobbins range, there is a little bit of a tier break. So that's what I was able to do here. I got Saquon and DeAndre Swift. You did it as well with Derrick Henry and Antonio Gibson. After that, I like taking some receivers, stocking up on that early value. And then right here, round 5 is where you take that 3rd running back. It's going to be a slight tier down, but guys that still should be productive for the season as a perfect RB3. If they bust, it's not going to kill your team, but if they hit, it's going to take you to the top. So I love the Gaskin pick, and I'm going to go running back 2 here. I don't know. There's some good receiver names on the board. I might roll the dice and see if one gets back to me.
T. Higgins there is criminal. Jamar Chase.
let's see, Nathan Cup for Pittman and a third in the Fantasy Stock Exchange Dynasty League. I like that. I'll take Cup there, especially if I'm contending. I think I made up my mind here. I'm going to go receiver. I'm going to go with DJ Moore. Steph, I know you like DJ Moore a lot more in dynasty formats than you do this season. There's the Sam Darnold question surrounding Carolina. I'm going to bank on him actually emerging as the wide receiver one this year. We thought it would happen last year. Robbie Anderson ended up leading the team in targets, but Moore is still a high yards per catch, a yards guy. If he can be a little bit more efficient and finally over-index on some touchdowns, he's going to be great as my wide receiver too. So it is a little risky here having Moore and Tyler Lockett as two more, big play boomer bust type wide receivers. But with Darren Waller as my tight end, I feel like it does stabilize my lineup a little bit. So now I'm back on the clock, and I am going to go back to that running back spot. I rolled the dice a little bit, and Chase Edmonds is here. Javonte Williams is here. Steph, I know you like Chase Edmonds a lot more than I do, but I'm definitely considering him with this pick, him or Javonte. This is a really, really tough one. For the sake of the mock, I'm going to go with the upside shot. If this was a real draft, I might lean Edmonds just for some more stability. But I'm actually going to go with Javonte. I know it's a little bit more of a dice roll with an uncertain Denver offense. He's going to split time with Melvin Gordon. I'm going to bet on him taking over sooner rather than later. And even if he doesn't, I can stash him on my bench. I'll end up flexing a wide receiver for the first part of the season. And as he gets ramped up into the offense, I can slide him into the starting lineup.
Nice.
We got a question from, I don't know how to say it. I think it's Matt.
It's Matt.
From our Discord. Shout out to you, Matt. Keenan Allen or
Matt?
Terry McLaurin for this year. For me, it's Keenan Allen. I love Terry as well, but with Keenan Allen, we know what we're getting. We have a much bigger sample size. He can do it all on the field, and he has Justin Herbert as his quarterback. And I think the talent of both of these guys is elite, but the quarterback play is what really makes the difference for me. I'm going Keenan there.
Yeah, I would too. And the nice thing about Keenan Allen is you can shoot for the moon and get Justin Herbert. Double down on that stack, because when we're in these fantasy football drafts, what we're saying every time we draft a player is that we are betting on them to have a good season. Well, there's less things that need to break your way. And guys from Player Profiler, guys from the Fantasy Flock have all talked about stacking in depth this year. There's a whole new revolution as far as what we believe about stacks. And if you dig into the numbers, really what you're doing is it's like a parlay bet. You're doubling down and you're saying, look, if I'm going to bet in the third round that Keenan Allen's going to have a great season, that implies that I'm also betting on Justin Herbert having a great season. And when you get those two guys in your lineup, yes, the downside certainly increases. But look, the way you win a fantasy
we're not playing third.
You got to go for that ceiling. It's all about ceiling. It's all about upside and being smart with the values. And so with that being said, I'm eyeing Matt Stafford. I'm not going to take him here.
Wait, Steph, before you pick, I want to interrupt you, and you might make this pick that I'm about to allude to. In my tight end tiers breakdown, which I did last week, unfortunately had to do it without you. You were on a much-needed vacation, so glad to have you back. I did say that tier 2 of tight ends, which was Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews, and TJ Hawkinson, was a smash for me in round 6, almost no matter what. And I would have taken TJ Hawkinson with my last pick if I did not have Darren Waller already on my roster. So right here, if I'm you, I'm smashing TJ Hawkinson, and I'm not looking back because he is a set it and forget it tight end all year long.
100%. You beat me to it. And this passing game in Detroit looks like it's going to be funneled volume to DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson already saw 100 targets last year.
Whew.
Now, look, we don't expect the Lions to be that good at this season, but there's a lot of players on bad offenses, bad teams, bad situations that produce for fantasy just because of their role in that offense. And for TJ Hawkinson, he's the one proven commodity in the passing game from last year. I'm expecting him to go well over his 110 targets or whatever it was last season and to get even more looks in the red zone. Let's just hope that Jared Goff can keep him at a nice level for fantasy. But you're right, Alex. You got to grab TJ Hawkinson or Kyle Pitts in the 6th. And really glad that you took Darren Waller to create that value.
The thing is, in a lot of leagues, you're going to see people reach on these tight ends, take them in the 4th, take them in the 5th. I'm not willing to do it there, but I've said it about that quarterback pocket of Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, or that tight ends here we just mentioned, Pitts, Andrews, TJ Hawkinson. round 6 on any of those guys, I'm willing to hit that draft button, and I'm not looking back. So I love the pick. I'm a little bit jealous. Your team is looking fantastic right now. And after that, we did see a couple quarterbacks go off the board. Russell Wilson went at the 612. I was hoping he'd get back to the 706 for that stacking strategy that you just mentioned with me already having Tyler Lockett, but I'm going to have to get into that here in a minute after I see if you snipe me here in the 7th round.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm looking at my wide receiver 3, already have Terry McLaurin and Cooper Kupp. So again, going back to shooting for upside, I'm going to take DJ Chark. And now what that allows me to do is take one of my favorite stacks, because they always come at values in these drafts, or at least, as long as you're not there with a bunch of Jacksonville Jaguars fans, you're going to be able to get Chark pretty late, like where I got him here as a wide receiver 3 flex type name. And then on top of that, I can get Trevor Lawrence in the double-digit rounds and maximize that, and just trust that Urban Meyer is going to somehow make this offense work in 2021.
So with my pick here, I'm honestly looking at the board, and I almost wish I would have waited on running back last round, because Chase Edmonds is still here.
He's falling.
If I hadn't already gotten Javonte Williams, this would be an easy Chase Edmonds value pick. But I am going to go wide receiver. Steph, I'm going to keep it with the Jacksonville theme. I'm going with your boy, who is now also my boy. No. It's Laviska Shenault. And I know, looking at the draft board, you might think this is a reach. Oh, you're going to take Shenault over Curtis Samuel, Jarvis Landry, Jerry Jeudy, Tyler Boyd. Yeah, I am, because this dude is an absolute beast. He showed flashes last season, showed everything we want to see out of a rookie in Jacksonville last year. Now he steps into a bigger role in this offense. He gets a huge upgrade at quarterback. The pass volume should still be there. So I think Laviska Shenault is going to light the world on fire this season. He is probably my number 1 breakout player at the wide receiver position. I'm willing to reach for him in drafts. Steph, I know we're in a couple leagues together with drafts coming up. It's going to be a battle between you and I. We're going to get some funny looks from everyone else in the league, whichever one of us ends up taking him a round or 2 early. But I think it's going to pay off for us, because Shenault, I'm all in. And getting him here as my wide receiver 3 is fantastic. I can come back and get another Mike Williams, Michael Gallup type of guy in the next round, maybe an Antonio Brown. Give me some stability there. So if Shenault doesn't break out, it doesn't kill me. But right here in drafts, man, this is just such a steal, because the upside is tremendous.
Yeah, you drove home all the points. Same reasons that I took Chark there. We're just betting on Trevor Lawrence potentially being the level of prospect that he was in college. People saying that he's the best prospect since Andrew Luck. I mean, that's the name that gets thrown out there continuously when we talk about T-Law. So I'll just put your chips in on that and say, hey, if these guys explode, I could potentially getting a pick, almost like a Robbie Anderson last year, a guy that was getting criminally slept on. Another name like that comes to mind is Stephon Diggs. Now, are we saying Laviska is going to be Stephon Diggs? No, but the guys who were able to wait and get these wide receivers that were able to be stable, boom, flex options.
Deontay Johnson could be a good example. He could be this year's Deontay Johnson, which would be fantastic.
Great example.
Another question from Matt.
In the 8th last year.
Another question from Matt. Which stack would we prefer, Herbert Allen or Lockett Wilson? This one's tough, because honestly, I've been doing a lot of best ball drafts over on Underdog, and these are the 2 stacks that I feel like I'm finding myself snagging the most often. I love both of them. I'm probably going to lean Herbert Allen, just because I think you are going to get a little bit more consistency there. The booms are going to be much higher with Lockett Wilson, but in your typical redraft league that's not a best ball format, I would like a little bit more consistently. I think end of season they finish similarly in points, but I want that consistency rating there. So I would lean Herbert Allen, but let me tell you, I love both, and I'm going to be targeting both in drafts.
I would go Herbert Allen as well, because last year we saw that pace of play extremely high. We saw them throw the ball a lot. We don't know necessarily if the Seahawks, there's these rumors, there's these narratives that they're going to let Russ cook. There was that little offseason turmoil. Who knows how real that really was? But, are you going to make the bet that Justin Herbert, who already threw the ball a ton in year 1, starting in a game that he didn't even expect to when Tyrod Taylor got his lung impaled? I think you just got to go with Herbert. It's really more going with Allen over Lockett. But I think in a vacuum, both can be great because of where you can get them in drafts. But Alex, I'm going to hit the resume draft button.
I'm ready.
Here. Good.
And this
So
is, I mean, this is another reason why I love either A, being willing to take an early tight end. I snagged Darren Waller in this draft, or B, stacking up on a couple running backs at the top, is because there is value later in drafts at receiver. Took Chenault last round. And you look at the receivers available, you got Antonio Brown, Michael Gallup, even like a
love
Marvin
AB
Jones
here.
or a Darnell Mooney as a wide receiver 4 would be fine. So, yeah, you know where I'm going. I'm going Antonio Brown here. He was a wide receiver 2 last season when he played over those last 8 games. That was with Godwin and Mike Evans healthy for all those games. He's got Tommy back in 2021. So I think Antonio Brown is a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2 with boom potential this year. So I'm going to lock in Antonio Brown as my wide receiver 4. In all honesty, I'm probably going to start him week 1 in my flex, let Javonte, Chenault, some of these upside guys sit on my bench, see what I have early on until I get more comfortable with their target share, with their, carries for Javonte, see how they look. But Antonio Brown's a guy who should be a producer from day one. So that's an easy pick for me, and I'm feeling great about it. Steph, I do want to hit one more question before you draft here from Thomas. Waffle House.
What's up, Thomas?
Waffle House Julio or Bobby Trees. I'm out on the Waffle House joke. I got to admit, but Julio or Bobby Woods.
Man, that's a tough one. Let me pause here. We can get into it. So I want to look at both guys' ADPs, but I think in a vacuum, I am going to go Robert Woods. If we're not correlating it to any ADP, what we do know is that the Rams are going to pass more. Well, they are going to pass this year because they brought in Matt Stafford. I don't think you bring in Matt Stafford, a guy who's been over the last, 10 years, man, one of the highest average yards per attempt, one of the guys who's thrown the ball the most. We've seen him have seasons with over 700 pass attempts when he had Calvin Johnson there, just going absolutely nuclear, slinging the rock. I think I got to go with Robert Woods there. I like Julio as well, but we do know that Derrick Henry is going to be the identity of that Titans offense. So that's the decision maker for me.
I'll agree with you on that one. His team nicknamed him Waffle House in high school because he was open 24/7.
I love it, Thomas. Let's go. So
man,
I took that Cooper Kupp. I took Cooper Kupp in the late 4th, and I've been preaching this whole time, stacking. I'm not even going to follow my own stacks because, just like you were saying with the tight ends, you got to know where the values are for you. And for me, I'm taking Jalen Hurts in the 8th every single time. I did see that Devonta Smith did suffer what they believe to be a knee sprain. He seems to be day-to-day at practice.
Yeah, it looks like 2 to 3 weeks.
That 2 to 3 weeks makes me feel good because we're still a much longer period of time than that until the season starts. Season starts was September 9th is the opening game on Thursday night. That's going to be a fun one. It's Bucks Cowboys to start the year.
In Tampa.
But even without Devonta Smith, I love what Jalen Hurts is going to give me on the ground. From a rushing standpoint, is certainly a guy like Kyler Murray in years past, Lamar Jackson, Mahomes. Like, there's always that sophomore explosion, and Jalen Hurts fits that mold. If he turns out to be a top 3 QB, like what I believe his upside is, then this is a league-winning pick that I'm making here at the 808.
I love it.
And then after I took Hurts, David Johnson, Damian Harris, Melvin Gordon, Marquise Brown, Jarvis Landry, Jalen Waddle, Michael Gallup, Trey Sermon, who I definitely would have had my eyes on here. Let's see who else is available. Michael Carter's there is an interesting one. Corey Davis is another one that I like as well. I think I am going to go with Michael Carter, and I'm going to take a gamble on him. But I've read that he's been running with the ones in camp. I'm not going to overreact to that news, but we know from a prospect standpoint, like Michael Carter's not going to be like, he's not an Ezekiel Elliott. He's just not. He's more of like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, kind of a guy that's very well-rounded, but isn't exceptional in any one facet. But for a guy who is Michael Carter's size, he did everything he needed to do in college. And I'm just gambling now on the fact that he takes over this RB1 role from a new front office that went out and drafted him in the early 4th round. It was like the 402. Yes, there's a drop off when running backs don't get that top 3-round draft capital. But look, I'm willing to round up with this Michael Carter pick. Just got to play all the narratives in my favor since I'm taking him and hope that the Zach Wilson-led Jets can start cooking this year.
Yeah, I love the pick, and it's an upside pick at running back. There's some more stable options, but with you already having, Derrick Henry, Antonio Gibson, and Myles Gaskin, you need that upside on your team. So I like the pick. I know who I'm going with. I'm going back to the Tampa Bay well. We got Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette on the board at running back, Steph. Which one do you think I'm picking?
Age-old debate. You know what would have been so poetic is if I would have gone Leonard Fournette and you would have gone Ronald Jones.
I mean, Ronald Jones is just that player I can't get away from. I'm just waiting for that breakout year. Yes, I understand the challenges he faces in a crowded Tampa backfield this season, but Ronald Jones is just straight up good. I've done film breakdowns on him before. Last season, he had that stretch of several consecutive back-to-back 100-yard plus games. He's a fantastic runner. I know there's going to be the concerns in Tampa. I get it. He's inconsistent. He finds himself in the doghouse a lot. But as my running back 4, if I need a spot start, he's a guy I can plug in there, hope for an 100-yard pop game and a touchdown, hope he gets the hot hand. And we've talked about it before. Both Fournette and Jones are values in the 9th round in drafts, because if something happens to one or the other, both are probably not going to play all 17 games. The other is going to become almost, must start for the weeks that they're healthy. So I'm back on the clock. I got 12 seconds.
I'll hit pause.
Oh,
I'll hit pause. You can
thank
relax.
Goodness. I was about to pick like Nyheim Hines here. So I'm glad you hit pause. It's the first name I saw.
So with Rojo, right? One of the really interesting things with him, getting him, especially in the 9th, was like, think about Kareem Hunt last year. He had this super appealing upside where people were taking him like early 5th round, late 4th round, because the idea was if Nick Chubb goes down, Kareem Hunt's going to explode. Now, we didn't see that upside to the same degree, but what we did see last year is that when Leonard Fournette was hurt or out of the lineup, Ronald Jones was the guy that was able to step in and produce. So this is another situation where, let's say we're deep into the season, Javonte Williams still hasn't broken out yet, and you need a guy in your flex spot, or you need a guy in your RB2 spot with Tyler Lockett, DJ Moore, Laviska Shenault breaking out, and AB being that stable option. Ronald Jones could easily be a guy that what weeks you're going to be able to start him. He's not like a Nyheim Hines or a J.D. McKissick or one of these scat backs. You never really know, like a Tariq Cohen, right? You never know when they're going to have those boom weeks. You never know based on the game script. You think it's great. Oh, they're playing the Falcons. Let me plug them in. And they lay a stinker. What you do know with Ronald Jones is when you need to put him in lineups, which is why I don't hate the Rojo pick, and Leonard Fournette went pretty close to him. So it's one of those things, like take your shot, pick your poison, who you're going to go with. A lot of guys in this range I like too. Zach Moss, A.J. Dillon going in at the 10:05. But Alex, who are you going with here at the 10:07? We're getting into these double-digit rounds. It's time to have some fun.
It's between a couple guys here. I still do need a quarterback, but you got Stafford, Burrow, T-Law on the board. I think I can keep waiting on the quarterback spot, as crazy as that sounds. There's 2 guys I'm deciding between, one at running back, one at wide receiver. I feel really good about my running backs. So I got Saquon, DeAndre Swift, Javonte Williams, Ronald Jones, and my receivers are a little bit weaker, just DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett, Shenault, and Antonio Brown. So I am going to go ahead and take a wide receiver here. Someone I've been talking about a lot, it's Henry Ruggs for the Raiders. I am going to take the bet on the year 2 breakout. This is an upside pick. The camp reports have been great. He's playing a lot on the outside. Gruden's had really good things to say about him and his maturity as a player, which you'd expect your head coach to say that about the guy he reached for the year prior. But I trust John Gruden. I think John Gruden sees something in Henry Ruggs. I know I'm, a Gruden grinder, big John Gruden fan, but I really think that he's not going to give up on Ruggs just because he battled injuries in his rookie season. So I think he's going to utilize him the right way this season, get him and Bryan Edwards, who's going to be another good sleeper option later on in this draft, get them going on the outside with Derek Carr at quarterback. So I'm going to go Henry Ruggs here and hope that we do see the year 2 breakout in Vegas.
Nicely done. Nicely done. Nice pick there. Because when you actually go look at what Ruggs did, like, I know he gets clowned on.
He
gets made
made
fun
some
of for
great
the
plays. There was one day I literally forced you to watch my screen share while I showed you Henry Ruggs highlights, because I was like, this is not the Henry Ruggs that people are talking about. Like, this dude is jumping over people to make contested catches, given it was like 3 times, but he didn't get that many opportunities. So when he got the chances and he got catchable balls downfield, he made plays.
And he's one of those guys too, like, you're not drafting him to be a starter every week, but he's one of those guys, like, I'm sure, like last year, Henry Ruggs is going to be a DFS name that you're going to be plugging in DraftKings and FanDuel. Same situation where if you get into a tight spot on your roster, or let's just say for whatever reason, maybe Waller goes down and Ruggs has to step up
You got
and
5
take
seconds.
the mantle. I'm going to hit pause and
Thank
keep
goodness.
talking about Ruggs and him getting overdrafted and, all the memes. But this is an interesting spot for me because where we're at, wide receivers wise, they're all upside plays. There's no one here that you feel truly good as a weekly starting option. And even though I need a wide receiver 4, I only have Terry McLaurin, Cooper Kupp, and DJ Chark. I feel so good with those names. And all these guys here at wide receiver are such, deep shots. There's no proven commodities here. It's really just take your gambles, hope it pays off. There's no amount of analysis that we can do that's going to tell us if Christian Kirk is going to have a bounce back year, or if Rashad Bateman's going to break out in year 1. Like, we think these things are going to happen. We can come up with narratives that can make it true. We can put together some of the, prospect profiles that they have. Some
it's
of
a
the years
gamble.
of past production, but it's a gamble. It's certainly a gamble. So knowing that these are all gambles, whether it's Nelson Aguilar, Emmanuel Sanders is a guy that I'm rising on as a super late redraft option. Don't really like him in Dynasty. But that's another guy to keep my eyes on. But right now, I think for my RB core, I'm going to go ahead and just finish it off. I like to finish every league, the 12-team PPR leagues that I'm in with 5 running backs, maybe even more that I'll take in like the very last round. I think last year, like a Joshua Kelly, just like a super deep guy that might take over the one. Last year, you were getting Myles Gaskin or James Robinson there. So I might circle back on one more RB. But there's a guy here I really have my eyes on. I've been getting him in almost every draft, and it's Tony Pollard. Not only because of what value he presents as a true handcuff to Zeke, but because of his situation in the offense and the extended season this year. Yep. I think they're going to Pollard more run.
That's the running back I was considering. That's the guy I was considering. And I would have taken him next round.
He is up against Zeke, who's 25, coming off a down year. Now, I expect Zeke to be fantastic. Still a guy that you got to take in the top 5 picks, 6 picks of your redraft leagues this year. But that's not to say Pollard can't produce as well. And I believe in the talent. I believe in the flashes that he showed last year. And we've already had Mike McCarthy come out and say he doesn't want to give Zeke 25 touches a game again this season like he typically does. And if the Cowboys get into the playoffs this year, they're going to want Zeke to be fresh. So down the stretch, I think Pollard not only gives me that handcuff boom upside, but I think he will have weeks like Chase Edmonds last year where he's this, secondary piece in that backfield that can still have value, whether it's through the air or with touchdowns.
I love it. I love the pick. Yeah, that would have been my pick next round. I think he's going to be more involved than people realize. But after Pollard, we did see another little running back run. Logan Thomas in the 11th round, just a crazy value there on the tight end. That's the thing. If you miss out on Kelsey Kittle-Waller, if you miss out on the round 6 smash of Andrews, Pitts, or Hawkinson, 9 times out of 10, I'm waiting until the 11th, 12th, 13th round to take my tight end, because you get values like Logan Thomas in the 11th round. You look at who's still available. There's still Robert Tonyan, Tyler Higbee, guys that have upside this season. If Fant or Goddard are there, maybe round 8, round 9, I'll think about it. But most of the time, I'm just going to absolutely punt it like I've done with the quarterback position here. It's that same thing. If I miss out on Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray in the 6th round, I'm punting the position till the 11th, 12th round, because there's still tons of value at quarterback on the board. You got Stafford, Burrow, and T-Law still there. That's I'll probably crazy. Snag one this round after your pick here. But yeah, you got 5 seconds. Sorry, I took up all your time.
That's the fun part of these drafts, right? And I actually already know who my pick is, so I'm going to go ahead and hit resume. And back to my point, right? Pick your poison. In other drafts, I've gone Nelson Aguilar at this range. Jalen Reagor is an interesting name. Would kind of be fun with my Jalen Hurts selection if Reagor ends up having a big year. I just think Reagor will be the number 2, maybe even the number 3 option. Really don't see him as a true number 1 on this offense, but a guy that I do believe could step up to be the number 1 in his respective offense, an offense that scores a lot of touchdowns, an offense that could take some steps in a different direction this year, which is Rashad Bateman with Baltimore. You know, I do believe the fact that they went out and drafted Bateman in the first and the talent and ability that Bateman showed in college at Minnesota, like, he's nuts. He's ridiculous. A lot of people had him over Devontae Smith in the draft process. I did at many points as well. We know the issue with Bateman is that he's competing against guys like Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, in an offense that doesn't have a ton to go around. But what I'm saying here is betting on the talent, betting on the draft capital in that first round pick that the Ravens spent on Bateman and saying, look, they're going to use him in this offense. They're going to try to let Lamar Jackson prove himself even more as a passer. I'm out on the narratives that Lamar Jackson can't pass because he's never had a receiver like Rashad Bateman. And all the comps that we look at with Rashad Bateman and what he's done and his physicality, his production, he's Stephon Diggs as a prospect. And so think about that. If I'm getting a young Stephon Diggs on the Baltimore Ravens, that's going to have boom potential in there.
Yeah, we'll see what he can do as a rookie. Thomas brings up Hollywood does have the hamstring issue. I'm not overly concerned about that right now, but if it lingers, if he misses time, if he has snaps limited, like, Bateman could step into a bigger target share earlier than we expect. So I did say I'm going to go quarterback here. Like, if I don't take QB and I see Stafford, Burrow, and T-Law go off the board, like, I'm really playing with fire this late in a draft. There's no one that's like screaming as a value at the other positions that I really need right now. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I get a good quarterback. I want to take T-Law because of what we said about stacking. He has upside, but rookie quarterbacks, man, they're pretty risky, and Stafford is still sitting there on the board. I know I don't have a Ram stack, but it just feels foolish to pass on someone like Matt Stafford in a Sean McVay offense, the gunslinger that he is. So I'm going to lock in Matt Stafford. Maybe I'll loop back to T-Law if he gets back to me in round 12, round 13. I really don't mind taking 2 quarterbacks if you're taking them extremely late in drafts, because you just have to think about value above replacement. Like, do I want Trevor Lawrence if he's there in the 13th round, or do I want to take my shot on, you know, Marlon Mack in the Indy backfield? You know what I'm saying? Like, guys that might not hit anyway. So I'm willing to take 2 quarterbacks in the right scenario. So we'll see if the values end up getting back to me. I'm not going to do it here in the 12th. Just because I don't want to go quarterback. But if T-Law does fall and creates a value for himself, I'm willing to take him as well, just to get that stack with Chenault. And if the breakout happens, I hit on both and I get that upside. But I am going to go ahead and lock in my 5th running back. You talked about wanting to come out of these drafts with 5 strong running backs. Actually, no, I'm not. The guy I thought I was going to take got drafted. I thought I was going to be able to snag Gus Edwards here. I didn't see that he went off the board at the 11-12. Maybe I should have waited one more round on the quarterback spot. Because honestly, now that Gus Edwards is off the board, running back to me is it's so bad that I'm not going to take a 5th running back just to get a 5th running back. I'd rather just go for upside at other positions like Phillip Lindsay, Gio Bernard, Gainwell, Ahmed, Marlon Mack. These guys, you know, they might hit. There's going to be injuries that happen. There's going to be guys that step up, but there's just no way of predicting it. And the hit rate's going to be so low. I'd rather just wait and blow some waiver dollars on whichever guy pops in week 1 or 2. So I'm going to fade the running backs that are left and actually lean some of these other positions. There's some value at tight end. There's some value at wide receiver. Jalen Reagor's there. I'm kind of out on him right now. There's been some pretty suspect reports out of camp in Philly. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab my guy, Paris Campbell, for the Indianapolis Colts. I get the concerns.
Homer Reach.
You know what? It is joking. Kind of a reach right here.
Thank you.
You got me tilted. I don't want to lose. I don't want to miss out on T-Law. I don't want to lose on Paris Campbell. So now I just kind of have to decide which one has the best chance of getting back to me. I think T-Law will get back to me. So I'm going to go ahead and take Paris Campbell. I'm not going to go back on my word. Look, I've been all over this guy this year. I get the Carson Wentz injury is a major cause of concern. And honestly, the fact that I was able to snag Campbell in the 12th round feels like a steal to me. I've been willing to take him in the 10th. In the 11th. So we're seeing that ADP already start to fall and be reflected. And Carson Wentz, based on, the 5 to 12 week timeline that we've heard, worst case scenario should be back by week 6, week 7. I know, Carson Wentz with no camp, no preseason, anything like that is going to be a little bit questionable coming off of that injury. But even if Paris Campbell gets Carson Wentz for the back half of the season, I think he could be tremendous. And I want to see what he does in this Colts offense. I know there's some dampered expectations now with the Wentz injury, but he's still a guy I want to come out of drafts with. In the 12th round, worst case scenario, I'm letting the pick on fire. You're kind of taking lottery flyers here anyway. So I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to go with Paris Campbell because I believe in the talent.
Well, Alex, I think you're probably going to be pretty pissed at me for this one because I'm going Trevor Lawrence. You thought he would make it back to you, but you actually set me up with a nice layup. I now get that Chark Lawrence stack. And I think we actually illustrated perfectly how to approach these stacks because it's a tough thing, right? We're all about them. We're saying, go get your stacks, go maximize your upside and potential, but you don't want to just throw your whole draft away just to go target a stack. You never go into a draft. This is so important. You never go into a draft saying, oh, I'm just going to stick to this one strategy. Oh, I'm going to go triple RB. Oh, I'm going to go 0 RB.
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't reach on a stack.
You got to wait. You got to wait for your guys. And I think at this point, Trevor Lawrence now makes a lot of sense for me. And
it hurts.
The way I like to play the quarterback position is to go with upside. And what better of an upside quarterback group than I have, Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence. If either one breaks out, not only is it going to be very strong and stable for my quarterback position, I could also move one if things don't break my way. If Derrick Henry, let's just say, breaks his ACL in week 5. Well, I know that if Trevor Lawrence hits and there's a guy in my league very excited about T-Law, I can go move him, try to get an RB2 that I can plug in there just for some safety and stability. So it gives you a trade chip. It gives you a maximized upside potential. Having Chark there made it even nicer for me. And
I'm pissed.
Yeah, I knew I
should have known better. 2 picks between you and me. You already picked up Chark. That's on me. That was a slip on me. You got to know your league too. If there's a guy in your league that's a huge Dolphins fan and you're trying to pick up, Myles Gaskin, and he's picking before you, got to know you might have to take him a couple picks early, maybe even a round early. And you also make a good point. You don't want to reach for stacks. We love stacking. Obviously, if I took T-Law there in the 12th round, great value, no problem. But don't reach on Ryan Tannehill in the 5th round just because you took AJ Brown in the 2nd. Make sure you're still getting the values because at the end of the day, if you get them at ADP, it can maximize that upside. But if you're taking them 2 rounds ahead of ADP, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot and defeating the whole purpose. So, Steph, before you pick really quickly, Derek's joining the party. What's everyone's positions on drafting tight ends? Derek, I'll do a quick recap for you what we've talked about so far because I was able to snag Darren Waller in the 2nd. Steph ended up with TJ Hawkinson in the 6th. We did a tight end tiers video. Our tier 1 is Kittle, Kelsey, and Waller. If those guys are available mid to late 2nd, early 3rd, we're willing to take them this year. And then tier 2 for us is TJ Hawkinson, Kyle Pitts, and Mark Andrews. For us, it's round 6. Just about every time it's an auto pick. If those guys fall to the 6th round, we're willing to take them. If not, we're probably going to hold off. We're not willing to reach. So if you get one of those tier 1 or tier 2 guys at a good value, we're willing to smash. If not, we're probably waiting till double-digit rounds on some of these flyers.
And I think the ADPs here are actually pretty solid. Just, maybe the only one that I'm hesitant on is Noah Fant going at the 601. I'd probably switch him and Hawkinson, but this is probably what you're going to see in most drafts. You're going to see somebody get really excited about Kyle Pitts and go get him in the early 5th. You're going to see Waller in the 2nd, Kittle in the early 3rd, Travis Kelce in the 1st. And then after that, you get into really the upside flyer names. Adam Troutman being a guy that you and I have talked about extensively, a guy that I think we're all excited about. He's now creeping into that 11th round, going over Mike Gesicki in this particular draft that we have running. Very interesting to see that there. So you could have waited to the 13th round in your draft and gotten Mike Gesicki, who's like the king of just being like a streamer off the waivers, hoping you get a touchdown and save your week. I think there's a lot worse ways that could have gone for this roster here. Granted, he did already have Pitts, but we're now down to the last 2 picks. And, I just talked at length about the, Trevor Lawrence and DJ Chark stack I got going. I love that stack this year. I have them in like a million underdog drafts. But I'm going to continue this stacking motif that we got going, and I'm going to go Jalen Reagor. I did like Jalen Reagor a lot coming into last year. I think he is a go up and get it type receiver. I think he is naturally a boom bust receiver. There are rumors that they could move him into the slot this year, which could, I think, help his volume from a standpoint of, hey, he's going to be this short, dump off passes. Hopefully he can get yards after the catch. I think he can based on his athleticism. He's a tremendous athlete. In college, his production wasn't great, but TCU, the offense that he played for, was pretty awful in the passing game. And if you just look at what he was doing on that team, it was really, really strong. So I still believe in Rager. I think there's still a chance he could break out. The Devonta Smith MCL issue just plays to my point even more. And now I got that Jalen Hurts, Jalen Rager stack. So I got 2 stacks at value. I'm pretty pumped about this roster right now.
Yeah, I don't mind Rager at that value at all. At this point in drafts, like we talked about, it's all about just upside. What is that potential avenue for the high end in the range of outcomes? So I like the Rager pick. And I'm going to go quarterback here. And this is really a pick to justify what happened last round. I don't want to look at this draft and say the wheels fell off at the Paris Campbell 12th round pick. I got sniped. I should have thought it through. But this is going to happen in your drafts. When you're on the clock, when you're in the moment, the pressure's coming down on you. You're not going to be prepared and evaluate everything going on. So yes, I love Paris Campbell this year, but I'm not going to let Steph sniping me with Trevor Lawrence drag me down. I'm going to bounce right back and go with Justin Fields in the 13th round because no, it's not going to give me a stack, but that's okay because Justin Fields has huge upside this season and he is the perfect name to pair with Matt Stafford, who I was able to snag in the 11th round. Stafford is going to be rock solid for the first several weeks of the season. No, he doesn't have the rushing upside, but he is going to be slinging it. When Justin Fields gets the reins at quarterback, which you and I both expect to happen sooner rather than later, we get to see if that rushing ability turns him into the Jalen Hurts of this year, the Kyler Murray of this year, the Lamar Jackson of this year. Who knows what his upside could be as a rookie in this Chicago Bears offense. So I have Stafford as a stable play. He's probably not going to win me a ton of weeks, but he's probably not going to lose me a ton of weeks. And then I have Justin Fields stashed behind him, who could be that league winner as we get towards the playoffs. Thomas, I agree. I like Trey Lance here as well. The reason I went Fields is because I think Fields is, if I had to put money on it, I would put money on Fields starting more games this season than Trey Lance. So that's kind of where I'm putting my eggs here. I'm putting him in the Justin Fields basket. So with my last pick, clock's running down. See if I can get a pause from the draft from the draft wizard here, so I can take a look at this board. I do have the 2 quarterbacks. I talked about how the running back pool is already nasty at this point. I would consider, even though I have Darren Waller, taking a second tight end, something I don't mind doing to see if one of these late round flyers can hit. Maybe I can get some trade value. Maybe who knows what that can turn into. At this point, I just want a player who is going to put up production. There's interesting wide receivers on the board as well. Guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, guys like Brian Edwards, guys like Terrace Marshall. And in looking through these names, it's really down between Blake Jarwin at the tight end spot. I think last year he was someone getting hyped as a breakout. And when he went down, that all kind of went out the window. I know Dalton Schultz had himself a nice season last year, but Blake Jarwin's healthy. There's no reason not to like him this year if you liked him last year. But I am going to just stick to Darren Waller at the tight end spot here. And I'm going to go with the wide receiver. It's a little bit of a negative correlation play. Steph, you mentioned it earlier in a different way when you talked about drafting Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson. You get the full share of that offense and it's going to net neutral for you. I'm going to go ahead and take Brian Edwards late in drafts. And the way I'm looking at this is I have Henry Ruggs on my team. I have Darren Waller on my team. Now I'm going to have Brian Edwards. I think we can all assume Darren Waller is hopefully as safe as they come. But between Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards, like one of these guys has to hit for me. So I think the chance of both of these, guys hitting is incredibly low, if not zero, if Darren Waller is going to do what we expect him to do. But with this Brian Edwards pick, I'm saying, okay, I like the upside on Henry Ruggs, but if Henry Ruggs totally fizzles out, it's probably going to be to Brian Edwards, success. So I'm going to lock in Brian Edwards. And I know that by week 4, by week 5, one of these 2 guys is probably going to be on the waiver wire, but this late in draft, I'm just going to try to arbitrage it a little bit, take both Raiders wideouts, see what happens through the first couple games of the season, and hold on to the one that's making more noise in this offense.
Nice.
And honestly, if I didn't have Ruggs, I still like Bryan Edwards a lot, which is why I was more willing to make that pick here in the last round.
Yep. Yep. And a guy I alluded to earlier, who I'm going to go with here as another upside wide receiver, knowing that I got 5 running backs and they're all pretty solid. Like I don't have any worries about like Tony Pollard as my RB5. So even though, yes, at this point, maybe you take a super deep flyer on a Joshua Kelly, on a, I don't even know who else is here that'd be interesting.
No
Regardless, a Ty Johnson, maybe, like if just want to, spread the chips around. But I'm going to go old Manny Fresh, Manuel Sanders here, because
I'm shocked.
What we know is that the Buffalo Bills passed the ball almost the most in the NFL last year. They also ran the second most amount of 4 wide receiver sets. So at worst, I know Emmanuel Sanders is going to be on the field. I know a lot of people are excited about Gabriel Davis. The thing that really scares me for Gabe Davis, if you look at his profile, the type of player that he is, he really appears as more of like a Mike Williams, Michael Gallup, maybe at his absolute peak, a Kenny Galladay, contested catch monster, really only used down the field and near the goal line. But with Emmanuel Sanders, we know he has that veteran capability to come in and just be a strong, stable number 2. We saw it in New Orleans when he was there. We've seen it in San Francisco when he was there. He's just a guy that we know, kind of like Marvin Jones this year. People are going to fade him in drafts because he's old, he's washed, whatever. But this is a guy that if Stephon Diggs goes down, he's probably going to be the number 1. And I don't want to bank on Gabriel Davis repeating a ridiculous 11% touchdown rate on his targets. He had 62 targets and 7 touchdowns. I just don't see that happening again unless he's truly just a one-trick pony used near the goal line. So I'm going to go Emmanuel Sanders and just pray that he can be the number 2 and come into my flex spot if I absolutely need him down the stretch. A lot of these guys that we take at the end, Rager, Bateman, Sanders, we know we can easily just drop them to the waivers and pick up other names later on. But Alex, let's take a look at our drafts here and see what we might have done differently in retrospect. So I'm just going to sort by roster here. I'll go into mine first. Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I feel like that's how I've started every single one of these rehashes. But he's the guy this year. And I also have Trevor Lawrence, sitting there on my bench, hoping that he can blow up as well. A nice stable RB1, RB2 combo, both with tremendous upside and proven capabilities in the case of Derrick Henry. We know what he's going to be. So I got Henry and Gibson, complementing that with a potential flex or fill-in should there be injuries or whatever, with Myles Gaskin, who was seeing 18 opportunities a game last year. Even when he was coming off of injury, they gave Myles Gaskin 20 touches on the ground. Like, they want to ride this guy into the mud. So I feel great about that. 2 upside shots on Michael Carter, Tony Pollard, kind of hedging against a lot of different factors, but feels really good with that stable of running backs there. And then at wide receiver, I feel really, really strong with this. Terry McLaurin and Cooper Kupp, guys that I've seen both projected on a lot of sites to be low-end wide receiver 1s. So if both of these guys do hit on that ceiling, I don't see a way I'm losing this league. Got TJ Hawkinson at what I felt like is a tremendous value.
Yeah.
Because, and look, Noah Fant probably would have been the pick here if Hawkinson or Goddard could have been the pick here. If Hawkinson would have went where he normally goes in drafts, I think Fantasy Pros, you got to get it together. Hawkinson fell way too far. That's not going to happen in a real life draft. But at least knowing that where that tier drop off was, I knew when to go and not reach, but when Hawkinson was a value to me. And then I was able to plug in that tight end spot and not rely on a Gronk, a Robert Tonyan,
right?
One of those type of deeper names. And then continuing here, we got Chark, another upside shot, Rager, another upside shot, both part of stacks. Rashad Bateman as another rookie upside shot, and Emmanuel Sanders is just a guy that I think is going to give me production. If he's washed, if he sucks, I just drop him and pick up someone else.
Yeah, I like your team a lot. I like your team a lot. I'm not going to lie. I think the Hawkinson pick was a great value. The Myles Gaskin pick was a great value. You just had a lot of the Jalen Hurts. I mean, you had a lot of guys that I know you've been talking about where you're like, hey, if this guy is here in this round, I'm going to take him. And that happened for you 2, 3, 4 times in this draft. So I know you got to be happy with this one. Yeah,
honestly, looking back on it, man, there's not much I would change. Feel really, really good about this one. Honestly, what's probably going to happen is, this draft isn't realistic because people are privy to running backs. People are privy to tight ends this year. The way that Fantasy Pros ADPs played out, it just so happened that I had a tremendous value on a ton of these names. But Alex, would you have done anything differently looking back at it?
I think your draft was fantastic. I'm a little jealous of your draft. Honestly, I like my team because I got a lot of guys who I consider to be my guys, but I'd be scared of your team in this league. I haven't broken down, team 11, team 2, any of these other competitors we got out here, but you got a good one, Steph. I'll run through my team really quickly. I got Matt Stafford at quarterback, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift at running back, DJ Moore, Tyler Lockett at wide receiver, Darren Waller at tight end. Flex is probably going to end up being Laviska Shenault or Antonio Brown. But then I also have Javonte Williams and Ronald Jones for some running back depth. And I got some flyers at wide receiver in Brian Edwards, Paris Campbell, and Henry Ruggs. Justin Fields as an upside quarterback as well. So looking at my draft, I said I got a lot of guys who I consider to be kind of my guys. I like DeAndre Swift a lot more than consensus. Got him in the 3rd round. I like Tyler Lockett a lot more than consensus. I like Darren Waller. If anything, maybe 207 was a little bit early for Darren Waller. But this year, it's a really tough spot because unless you get a top 3, top 2 pick, you're not going to be able to take Waller or George Kittle out of value, because where I'm really comfortable with those guys is the 211, 212, 301, 302. But if you're picking somewhere in the middle of the 1st round, you're either going to have to reach or you're probably going to miss out on those tight ends. So maybe I would have just let the draft fall to me. Instead of Waller, I could have gone with a Calvin Ridley, with a DK Metcalf, taken an upside wide receiver that I know is going to be stable. But I'm honestly okay with it. And then on the back end of my draft, I love Paris Campbell. I love Henry Ruggs. I think his upside is great. And then Shenault and Antonio Brown are guys I've been talking up a lot. And if you've listened to this channel for any amount of time, you know I love Ronald Jones as well. So I like this team. I think there's guys on it that need to break out for it to really be a contender. We talk about a Laviska Shenault. We talk about a Javonte Williams. If a couple of those guys can hit, I think this team could go to the top. Justin Fields as well. So I like my draft. Definitely a couple things I probably would have done differently just with the roster construction, probably waiting on tight end being the biggest one, but turned out all right for me. I think even taking Waller at the 207 didn't absolutely kill me. And if you really, really love Waller or George Kittle, I think this is evidence that you can take them mid to late-ish 2nd round and still be okay.
Yep, 100%. And that's why we do these live streams, we do these drafts, and that's why we do these Q&As, is so we can learn, continue to refine, and come up with the optimal draft strategies. And we're going to continue to break it down and theory craft, go really deep behind some of the decisions that are going to lead you to fantasy wins this year. Shout out to everybody that won championships, was following us last season. That was a heck of a run. Looking forward to doing it again. If you want to join the conversation with us, join that Discord channel. It's in the description on all of our videos. It'll be in the description on this video as well. It's free to join. We're always in there. Feel free to @ us on there. It's, Twitter just got too overloaded and it's a cesspool these days. So we decided, let's create a separate community, a nice quiet spot where we can just go deep on fantasy and put together what I believe is one of the best hive minds around fantasy football that you can find on the internet. Alex, anything else to add before we get out of here?
No, just honestly, Steph, just to second your Discord comment, like we've started leagues from there. If you want to get in leagues with us, that's the best way to do it. Great call. If you really ask a question there and you tag us, like we're going to answer your question. And it's been an absolute blast. Everyone in there has been, a ton of fun to interact with. I think we're going to get a lot of championships this season, Steph, in these DMS leagues with the guys in the Discord and the people, following the channel. So stick with us for the season. We're going to be coming back with a lot more mocks. It's going to get juicy. We're into these camp reports. Things are changing day by day. It's going to be a lot of fun, so just stick around.
Appreciate y'all watching. I almost said listening and watching, but we're not podcasting this one. But if you want to take us on the go, you know where to find it. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. But Alex, I think that's it. Let's get out of here. Peace.
See ya. Peace.